Welcome to the November meeting of the Capital Program Oversight Committee. Do we have any public speakers, Mr. Stewart?
Yes, we have one public speaker, Mr. Mary Bowden.
9 railcar procurement, but I can't speak on it until after they make their presentation. So with your permission, I'll speak on it afterwards.
We need to take the comments now, Mr. Bowden. Thank you.
It's difficult to comment on a presentation I haven't seen and didn't know about. But essentially, what was brought up this morning at Metro North Committee meeting was why we don't buy quad sets instead of married pair. And that directly affects what you're going to talk about today. They can buy married pairs of 2 cars assembled into a 4-car quad set, which would make it possible and provide more seats in the car, less maintenance because you'd have 2 less control cabs of full control cabs to be tested. And the married pair could be taken out as a unit, and you could run the other 2, same as you do now. Only the married pair would be one with a control cab and one without a control cab, assembled into a quad unit. It would increase flexibility and make it possible to do things we don't do now. So I would have liked to address that more adequately after seeing their presentation, because they were supposed to do it this morning, but they didn't, which is why I'm here now to see it, because they didn't do it this morning.
Thank you, Mr. Bowden. May I have an approval of the minutes of the October 26th meeting, please? Motion? Second. Any comments or questions? All in favor? Aye. Committee work plan, Mr. Stewart?
There's one change to the work plan. We've revised the presentation schedule for Positive Train Control Project. Given that the last presentation was provided September 21st, less than 2 months ago, the next PTC presentation will be scheduled for February and will coincide with the next joint Long Island Railroad and Metro North Committee meetings. Going forward, PTC presentations to CPOC will continue to coincide with the joint Long Island Railroad and Metro North Committee meetings. We will do them in February, June, and October of 2016. In addition, I would like to take an opportunity to point out an important recent development affecting PTC here at the MTA as well as properties across the country. On October 29th, the federal government extended the deadline for PTC rollout to December 31st, 2018. This new date is consistent with our last reported scheduled completion date, which we will provide an update on in February. Thank you.
Now we'll have the Long Island Metro North update on rolling stock.
Okay, good to go? Okay. Good afternoon. My name is Jim Allen, and I'm the Director of New Rolling Stock at Long Island Railroad and Long Island Railroad's Project Manager for the M9 Joint Railcar Procurement with Metro North. This afternoon, I'll be sharing the CPOC presentation with Dwight Soden, Metro North's Director, Capital Programs. Together, we will be discussing the joint Long Island Metro North M9 Railcar Procurement, Long Island's M9A Procurement, and Metro North's M8 Procurement. On slide 1 is a picture of the Long Island Railroad mock-up car, which is located at Kawasaki's facility in Kobe, Japan. One of the new features on the M9 car, besides the enhanced safety yellow color arrangement, is the forward-facing destination signs on each side of the car, which will be easier for passengers to see when they're waiting on the platform. Slide 2 shows the same mock-up car from the side. As you can see, it's very similar in appearance to the M7 car that Long Island and Metro North operate today. The slide on page 3 identifies Long Island Railroad's total requirement for 416 cars, which are funded over 2 capital programs. The M9 contract was awarded to Kawasaki Railcar with headquarters in Yonkers, New York in September 2013. The contract is currently for a base order of 92 cars for Long Island Railroad, which are funded in the 2010-2014 program. The contract also has provisions for up to an additional 584 cars for Long Island and Metro North. Long Island's first option for an additional 88 cars is funded in the 2015 to 2019 program. The 92 base order cars, along with the first option for 88 cars, provides 180 cars that are intended to replace Long Island Railroad's existing fleet of M3 cars, which will have reached the end of their useful life. For Long Island Railroad, the 15 to 19 program also contains funds for an additional 76 cars, which are intended to support East Side Access service. At the bottom of the chart, Long Island Railroad also has plans for a separate procurement for what are referred to as M9A cars, which are also to provide East Side Access service. The RFP is scheduled to be released in the second quarter of 2016. However, because the East Side Access full funding grant agreement between MTA and FTA identified the 160 cars for East Side Access, the M9A cars will be purchased pursuant to a separate procurement with federal procurement guidelines. Metro-North will also have an option under the Kawasaki M9 contract for between 140 and 170 M9 cars, which are also funded in the 2015 to 2019 program. Slide 4 provides some information on the value of the base order for the 92 Long Island Railroad cars, which has a current EAC of $377 million. This represents a $2 million increase over our initial EAC. The increase is due to two factors. The first is that there are additional costs for force account and third-party consultant labor associated with a 3.5-month schedule extension granted as part of a BN change order. The schedule extension resulted in the car deliveries commencing in January 2018 instead of September 2017. I will discuss the change order in more detail later in the presentation. Secondly, for the overall benefit of the project, Long Island and Metro-North have been conducting numerous M7 on-car testing with Kawasaki on our property, which was not originally anticipated when the project was initially estimated. Such tests as ride quality, electrical characteristics, and some HVAC testing that we performed. Again, that wasn't in our original budget, but we thought it was to the benefit of the project, so we moved forward with those. The slide also identifies the estimated budget for Long Island Railroad's option for the additional 164 cars, which are funded in the 2015 to 2019 program, and that would be $500 million. And then finally, the M9A procurement that I spoke to earlier has a budget currently for the 160 cars of $707 million. Slide 5 identifies some major project milestones accomplished by the team to date. As I stated earlier, the contract was awarded in September 2013, and since then we have completed initial design reviews, preliminary design reviews. We've held 3 mock-up reviews in Japan on the car that you saw the picture of. We've commenced final design with the car body and the truck first as KHI products coming out of Kawasaki in Japan. And in October, we successfully completed car body structural testing as a major milestone, a major accomplishment. Slide 6 is a picture of the car body fully instrumented prior to the testing of the car body, and as I mentioned, that was successfully completed in October in Japan. Slide 7 also shows that the mock-up was subjected to a climate room test where it was covered with snow and soaked at temperatures as low as -20 Fahrenheit and as high as 105 degrees Fahrenheit. Slide 8 shows the interior of the mock-up car. Please be aware that these seats are for mock-up purposes only and were only installed in the car to give it some sort of perspective of what the final design would look like. As you can see, the interior of the M9 car, as with the exterior, is very similar to the M7 design. And while close to the finally chosen M9 blue seat color selection, the colors of these seats are not exactly what the final design will be. And the seat backs will be in off-white. And finally, the age-old question, although not readily apparent in the picture, the M9 will have new and improved armrests with a closed-loop design and will be made from stainless steel. Thank you. Made from stainless steel with a pad affixed to the top of the armrest for passenger comfort. And as a sustainability initiative and customer amenity, M9 cars will be equipped with LED lighting, as you can see in the picture.
Mr. Albert?
Is there any physical difference between the Long Island Railroad's and the Metro-North's version of M9, and is there a difference between the M9 and the M9A car? Or is that
Physically,
just an additional order?
as far as the car shell is concerned, it's identical to the M7 car because of the tunnel restrictions, right. The clearance diagram, that Long Island has the most restrictive clearance diagram. So that ultimately drives the Metro-North car because it's a joint procurement, one car body.
Thank you.
The 12-month look ahead, As you can see, for all intents and purposes, the railroad's project teams over the next year will be consumed with holding FDRs, conducting truck testing, performing the various system qualification tests, approving the first article inspection for each and every system in the car, and finally inspecting the 14 pilot cars that will be manufactured in Japan and will come to the United States for testing. The next slide we identify we have completed and fully executed only one change order on the project to date, and that was a safety and crash survivability enhancement to the structure of the car, more specifically to the B-end where the married pairs are coupled together. As part of our constant lessons learned approach to project management on M9, we reviewed Metro-North's Bridgeport incident, and since we were in the early stages of the M9 design, we thought about what we could design differently in our car to lessen the damages should a similar incident occur. In Bridgeport, the F end of one M8 car came in contact with the B end of another M8 car that had derailed. As I stated earlier, since we were in the early design phase of the project, this came at a relatively small cost to the overall project of this new design and greatly improved the safety of the train. The total cost of the base order was $242,000, and as I mentioned earlier, as part of the negotiation, we granted a 3.5-month time extension to the project. The next slide shows some of the M9 car improvements over the M7 fleet. As far as increased safety is concerned, the car will enter revenue service with a fully operational positive train control system. With regards to security, the M9 car will be equipped with 8 cameras in the passenger area of the car, which will provide 100% coverage within the car. In addition, there will be a forward-facing camera, and there will also be an in-cab camera. There will also be 4 multimedia screens located in the car, and the M9 car will have between 4 and 6 additional seats over the M7 fleet, and each row of seats will have an electrical outlet similar to the M8 car. As stated earlier, a sustainability initiative and customer amenity, the car will be equipped with LED lighting. And the service-proven and robust M8 truck was the basis for the Kawasaki design for the M9 car and will provide superior ride quality. It's a heavier, stronger design. It'll be more maintainable and it'll last longer. And since it's not known what technology will be available in 2018 when the cars arrive, we are having the M9 car, what we refer to as Wi-Fi ready or whatever that technology may be in 2018. We'll be prepared to go without having to tear the car apart to make a change. Open issues on the next slide. Weight has been an issue on the M9 project since contract award. The M9 has some very ambitious weight requirements. However, as in every car procurement, and the M9 is certainly no different, the authority and the car builder must work together to resolve weight issues without ever compromising safety, car reliability, and maintainability. For the next item, as evidenced on the previous page, the M9 has added a lot of electronic equipment into the car for safety, security, as well as customer amenities, as well as having additional seats. Unfortunately, the M9 car was already starved for space, and in putting these additional items into the car has only made the matter worse. To fit everything into the car, Kawasaki designed overhead equipment lockers. Unfortunately, these were unacceptable for a number of reasons, such as safety, prone to vandalism, and maintenance, and therefore that design was rejected. As a result, the railroads are working closely with Kawasaki to reconfigure the interior of the car to enlarge the existing electrical locker to replace the overhead lockers that were originally there. One of the byproducts, the benefit of this is that we'll be able to restore overhead luggage rack space that had previously been removed for the overhead equipment lockers. The last item, the M9 car came with a limited CCTV system, which was just one forward-facing camera with a 7-day recording requirement. We did a contract change order that we're progressing now to have the M9 car outfitted as all the rest of the Long Island Metro-North fleet CCTV capabilities will be. The next slide discusses briefly a new component to the railroad's procurement that was added in the M9 project. Understanding the need to limit to the greatest extent possible the amount of sole source procurements that we have to execute in the aftermarket following delivery of the cars, the M9 contract contains a 40% goal that all parts designed into the car have to be commercially available off the shelf or available from multiple sources. With the assistance of a consulting firm, the railroads have continually challenged Kawasaki and their subs. And today I'm happy to report that Kawasaki is currently projecting this percentage to be 53%. There still remain a couple of suppliers who haven't participated to the level that they could be, so we continue to challenge Kawasaki and them. The last page, which is rather busy, is a schedule that identifies the three projects that we are currently managing. The first column shows the Long Island Railroad M9 base order for the 92 cars, which, as I said earlier, was awarded in September 2013, and we're in the midst of the 39-month design phase. 6 months of pilot car testing starts in January 2017. There'll be 8 cars at Pueblo for 3 months, and then 6 cars will join those 8 cars at Long Island for another 3 months. In the true fashion of a pilot car program, we have a 5-month hiatus to incorporate any modifications that come out of pilot car testing into the production cars. Production deliveries commence in January 2018 at the rate of 12 cars a month, and the 92 cars are all delivered by August 2018. The base order is then followed by the 88 Long Island Railroad cars, which will complete the replacement of the M3. The second column identifies the separate procurement for 160 East Side Access cars, the M9A cars, and the schedule in this chart assumes that there is a separate car builder, since this is a separate procurement subject to federal procurement guidelines. The award is planned for March 2017, and all cars will be delivered by April 2022. And finally, the third column identifies Metro North's option for up to 170 M9 cars, and assumes that the M9 cars are delivered in between Long Island's option for 88 and 76 cars. The Metro North cars will be delivered starting in April 2018 and be completed by March or May 2020, depending on the final quantity ordered. At this point, I'd like to turn the presentation over to Dwight Soden from Metro North.
I believe Andrew Albert has got a question for you, so let
Can
let
you
him
just
ask it now.
tell me how the 4 to 6 additional seats were incorporated? Does that mean less legroom, or is there something else that has changed in the car?
These are flip seats that we added in some areas where we were able to compress and move the interior of the car around. It was a goal of ours right from the beginning was to increase seating capacity within the M9 car. The difference between the 4 and the 6 is that the initial base order on the M7 had 211 seats per pair, and after the base order, we initiated a change order to put a 2-person flip seat. That brought us up to the 213.
Thank you.
Dwight?
Good afternoon, folks. Dwight Soden, Metro North Capital Engineering, Director of Rolling Stock Procurement. I'm going to provide you an update on the M8 car procurement. As we've reported before, the contract value is a $1.1 billion contract with Kawasaki Railcar. It is funded jointly by the State of Connecticut and Metro North, MTA. A total of 405 M8 cars were delivered, 380 in married pair configuration, and 25 single cars. These cars provide service on the New Haven line and the Shoreline East territory of Connecticut. These cars allow for the retirement of the M2s, M4s, and M6s. As of June 30th, 2015, all 405 cars have been delivered. The mean distance between failure has been increasing and is currently at 315 miles year to date. Customer reaction has been very positive. Shoreline East testing began in mid-October of 2015. We're currently working with CDOT and Amtrak to commence MA qualification testing to include Access PTC on the Shoreline East territory in first quarter of 2016. Progress continues on the field modification instructions, or field modification implementation, with an emphasis on the critical items such as auxiliary power, pantograph, and so forth. That concludes the update on the M8 program.
Any questions for the Metro North M8 program? If not, we'll hear the independent engineers report. George Benz.
Good afternoon. I'm George Benz. I'm a relatively new member of the IEC program. I've got a couple of comments. A lot of my comments you're going to see a repeat of what's already in Jim Allen's report. Except the change orders has affected the schedule for 3.5 months. It already been rolled into the schedule we've previously seen. There are other pending change orders that might have an effect on the schedule. And that's just a concern at this point. That further discussion will elaborate how much. On the budget, EAC, as Jim pointed out, climbed from $2.4 million, and the current program appears to have its contingency money fully committed. There's another pending changeover that might have a cost impact And the Long Island Railroad has requested $8.9 million in additional cost contingency in the 2015 to 19 capital budget program. Observations, as Jim already pointed out, vehicle weights continue to be a problem. It's being worked by both the car builder and the Long Island Railroad. The equipment locker has now been approved and implemented into the design, and I think that's an improvement. Replacement parts project, we continue to be ahead of the goal of 40%, and all the vendors appear to be cooperating now. That part of the project appears to be moving fine. Critical milestones. The issue of the vehicle weight needs to come to conclusion. We're now proceeding into the final design reviews, and that means we'll begin to lose our opportunities to reduce the weight. Okay? And the schedule for the final design reviews is tight. If we see any slippage, it may have an impact on the delivery of the equipment. That's the conclusion of my report.
Any questions of the independent engineer? If not, we'll move on to the Long Island Railroad Capital Programs update.
Yes.
Rich Oakley.
Yes, how are you? Good afternoon. I'm Rich Oakley, Chief Program Officer. Is this on? Can you hear me? Yeah, okay. Chief Program Officer for Long Island Railroad. With me today is Glenn Greenberg. He's the Deputy Chief Engineer. He and I will be presenting to you the update for Long Island Railroad's capital program with focus on specific achievements and milestones. This year we started early tracking our annual goals, and as you can see here, as of the end of October, we're just slightly below our goals, but surely we'll achieve a full 100% of our goals before the end of the year. Next. In 2015, the Long Island Railroad reached several significant milestones. Next. To advance the first phase of mainline double track, at the preliminary design level, we released a design-build contract limited to the initial civil and site work necessary to support the track infrastructure which is to be installed by Long Island Railroad forces. With most of the retaining walls and earthwork now completed between Central Islip and Ronkonkoma, on August 27th, the Long Island Railroad officially started the track work for Phase 1. The track infrastructure will be installed by Long Island Railroad forces, consisting of 5 miles of new track, wider grade crossings, new crossover switches, new third rail and signal system, all of which is forecast to be completed by February 2017. During design of the signal system, Long Island Railroad decided to incorporate reduced aspect signaling as a best value initiative, which will simplify the signal system, wayside components, and eliminate the need for signal bridges. Although this change clearly is a benefit, it will result in a 5-month delay to the project. This impact, combined with the previously reported delay in getting the wetlands permit, has resulted in a total delay of 7 months. Phase 2 of mainline double track between Central Islip and Farmingdale is pending approval of the new capital program. Next. Another design-build project and milestone reached in 2015 relates to Jamaica capacity improvements and the reconstruction of Johnson Avenue Yard. The reconstruction of Johnson Avenue Yard is divided into 2 stages, the south half and the north half of the yard. Stage 2, involving the realignment of the south yard tracks and executing the initial civil site work necessary to make room for the Jamaica Station platform. The track work required to support for east side access was completed on August 23rd, and we are now in the process of advertising bids to construct a new platform. Next. Stage 2, consisting of the reconstruction of the south half of the yard and the lead track, which had to be approximately 6 feet higher than it is today to meet the entry switch and the track profile for the new platform. The work required a 28-day shutdown of the entire yard so that we could remove and reconstruct the lead track and lattice section of the south yard, during which time the contractor and Long Island Railroad worked around the clock to complete a very aggressive schedule with work consisting of the rerouting of utilities, removed existing lead track, completed 76 micro piles and 300-foot-long relieving platform, and we had to strengthen the Suffolk Boulevard Bridge to take on the extra load of the raised track. Waterproof the bridge, and we have to reinstall the lead track along with 3 new switches. Colonial Road improvements. This project consists of the replacement of the 115-year-old Colonial Road Bridge, as well as extending the existing pocket track on Great Neck, just east of Great Neck Station. Using a design-build contract again, we were able to close the old Colonial Road Bridge on March 30th and quickly advance construction. Utilities were relocated and the existing Colonial Road Bridge removed over the weekend of June 20th. During the weekends of August 22nd and September 26th, we were able to construct the precast arch required to support the new bridge. We're about to show you a little quick video. Next. This work was performed during a 2-weekend track outage between Great Neck and Port Wash. The arches used are part of a pre-engineered system commonly used for roadway crossings over highways and railroads. The archway being constructed consists of 84 precast concrete units spanning 52 feet, each weighing 42,000 pounds. The total length of the arch is 324 feet to support the road alignment, which crosses diagonally over Long Island Railroad tracks. Yet another design-build project is the replacement of Ellison Avenue Bridge, a roadway bridge above our main line track between Carl Place and Westbury stations. The bridge is being constructed in compliance with New York State DOT waiver with variance clearance of 19 foot 6 inches to support the future freight operations. The vertical clearance of the old bridge was only 17 foot 9 inches. The additional bridge clearance was made up by raising the roadway and using a leaner superstructure consisting of pre-stressed concrete beams. The Ellison Avenue Bridge was demolished on May 16th, the weekend of. New bridge structure was erected during the weekend of October 24th, and the roadway is scheduled to reopen April 2016. Next slide. This is, again, another quick little video. The first half of the video is the demolition of the bridge, and the second half of the bridge video is the reconstruction of the bridge that took place over those 2 weekends. It consisted of 12 precast concrete beams that sit side by side and that are grouted together by adjoining rebar, or what we call shearways. Next. Other milestones was the opening of Massapequa Station improvements, which we opened on July 23rd. Next. And then a month later, we opened up the Wyandanch parking facility, which brought about 500 additional parking spaces. Construction was performed again under a design-build contract, which allowed several elements of construction to progress ahead of the design. The facility was completed from start to finish in 16 months. The parking facility also complements the town of Babylon's Wyandanch Rising, a transit-oriented development. Next. Okay. From inception to date, the Long Island Railroad has awarded 35 small business mentor program projects from Tier 1, Tier 2 in the federal mentor program. They total $34.3 million, and they consist of various types of work from paving, roofing, painting, HVAC replacement, elevator replacements, and many other types of projects. Now I'll turn the floor over to Glenn.
Good afternoon. I'm Glenn Greenberg, Deputy Chief Engineer, Long Island, and I'm going to provide you a quick update on the state of good repair and normal replacement of infrastructure and systems. Next slide, please. As you can see, the 2015 to 2019 program has a very substantial component of normal replacement and state of good repair. Next slide, please. The cornerstone of our state of good repair is our annual track program, a very robust program this year. It consists of cyclical replacement of components such as wood ties. Other components such as continuous welded rail are changed out on a tonnage basis to ensure that they're replaced before the end of their fatigue life. We're still working, but we're getting toward the end. We anticipate meeting or exceeding all of our goals. Next slide, please. A significant project that was kicked off, the construction of which was kicked off this year, is the Atlantic Branch block tie replacement. The genesis of this was actually in a New York City Transit Authority project to be able to do component replacement of deteriorated block ties without having to do a full replacement of the entire tunnel track system. We're replacing just under half of the total block ties that are in the tunnel. This is between Dunton, just west of Jamaica, and East New York. And they're being replaced, the old wood ties being replaced with a polymer composite tie that should provide superior life and protection against deterioration. And the productivity has been that we've been able to cut the estimated weekends down from 49 to 40, substantial cost savings. Next slide, please. We have a brief video. The contractor was able to come up with a very innovative way of removing the block ties. This has always been the kind of the slowest part of the process, and it's enabled us to achieve production of well over 1,000 block ties per weekend. That's sealing the ends of the ties in preparation for pouring the grout, which bonds the tie to the existing concrete base. That's the finished product. Next slide, please. In 2015, we commissioned 2 new substations at Hillside and Kew Gardens, just east and west of Jamaica, respectively. The substations are modular, installed on foundations, prepared by a Long Island Railroad force account, and all the connections are also provided by force account. Next slide, please. In 2015, we performed another series of state of good repair projects with the power system, replacing 446,000 linear feet of third rail protection board, 20 negative reactors, 4 signal motor generators, which provides power to the signal system, and their associated programmable logic controllers. Next slide, please. On the signal normal replacement, again, it also focuses on components within the system of batteries, switch machines, signals, equipment cases, relays, grade crossing gate mechanisms, and part of the ongoing TC Green cable replacement. Next slide, please. Finally, also in the Atlantic Avenue Tunnel, in addition to the block tie replacement, we've also completed replacement of the copper communication system and the emergency phone system. It's in the tunnels. And you can see some of the photos show the new phones with their enclosures and a testing system that was done to ensure proper performance. That was it. Any questions?
Neil?
Thank you. I'm referring back to page 44 to the annual track program. Can you just give a sense of how these goals are set and what percentage of the track, overall set of tracks, does this program affect on a percentage basis annually? I can't interpret what 12,000 means. Is that 1%? Is that 0.1%? I just don't know. So
Basically, well, wood ties have an estimated life of about 35 years, okay? What we try and do is replace about 20% of them in a given stretch of track every 7 years, so that over the course of 35 years, you've replaced all of them. So it's basically a cyclical basis. Most years we do more wood ties than this. We were so caught up on our program that we were able to do a kind of a lesser amount this year. This year, the main focus was on continuous welded rail. That has somewhat of a different cycle. That's based on tonnage, so it varies considerably. It's not really based on years.
and then the goal setting is tied to that 20% every 7 years. Is that what that is?
Yes, that's purely based on a time cycle.
Any other questions or comments? Okay, now we'll have reports from the independent engineers. The report on mainline double track, Mohammed Mohammedina.
Good afternoon. The IEC concurs with the agency's explanation of the schedule delays on the mainline double track Phase 1. Some schedule delays may be partially mitigated based on the availability of automatic track installation contractor. As far as budget, the expenditures to date reflect the correct percentage of project completion. The IEC awaits the Long Island Railroad's revised project cost estimate in order to review the potential impact of various project delays on the total project budget and contingency. As far as recommendation, the IEC recommends an internal risk assessment update to review the impacts of the automated track installation, implementation of reduced aspect signaling, and conflicting operational needs on the project budget and cost. As for Segment 2, the IEC expects to facilitate and participate in a risk assessment workshop with the agency during the second quarter of 2016 to identify the risks and opportunities of the mainline double track Phase 2. This concludes the IEC's review of the mainline double track project.
Any comments or questions of Mohammed? If not, Mark Ghaznavi will deliver the IEC report on Jamaica capacity improvements. Mark?
Good afternoon. The overall Jamaica Capacity Improvements Phase 1 project and the associated East Side Access Readiness projects are on schedule to be completed in time for East Side Access opening day service. As you heard, the Johnson Yard Design-Build project is proceeding on schedule. The 28-day outage, during which a substantial amount of work was done, was completed on time. On the budget, currently the overall project is on budget, and the expenditures to date reflect the percent of project completion. The IEC agrees with the project reported by Long Island Railroad. The independent engineer is satisfied with the agency's risk mitigation efforts. For example, Long Island Railroad ordered some long lead items, including switches, through the third-party Johnson Yard Design-Build contract. Buy America issues delayed some switch procurements. However, Long Island Railroad expedited the procurement using an FTA waiver and a combination of Buy America compliant and temporary non-Buy America compliant switches. The availability of track outages is critical to the schedule. Long Island Railroad has done long-term outage planning using integrated project schedules. They have successfully updated the schedules as individual contracts are revised, which allowed them to maintain the completion dates. On coordinating between the design-build contractor and the force account crews, coordination meetings are periodically held to avoid conflicts. Stage 1 of the Johnson Yard construction was completed with no major conflicts. That concludes my report on Jamaica capacity improvements.
Any comments or questions? Mr. Albert?
Are the Jamaica improvements still, as we have heard over the years, the forcing of everybody bound for Brooklyn to change to Platform F, and most of the through trains going to either Penn or Grand Central?
That is correct. Yes.
So there's been no change in that.
That die was
That's
cast
right.
quite a while ago.
Yeah.
So,
I was afraid of that.
I mean, actually, when the first discussions of East Side Access and the restructuring of the Long Island Railroad Service Plan, when I was there,
So that means people that formerly had either a one-seat ride to Brooklyn or an across-the-platform transfer to Brooklyn will now have a major transfer to continue to Brooklyn, an up, over, and down,
yes.
which means that you're going to run, I assume, a shuttle service from Jamaica to Brooklyn, and would have to be at least as frequent as the trains that were existing now.
It could be at least as frequent, it would likely be more frequent, but I guess the decision can be made at a later date.
Thank you.
Any other comments or questions? Now, John Kennard will give an overview of the Metro North Capital Program.
Good afternoon. I'll give a quick background on Metro North's capital program and then focus on two major initiatives. The next two slides focus on the 2010 to 14 capital program and 15 to 19. Our 10 to 14 program totals $1.5 billion. The railroad has continued to focus on the infrastructure of the railroad, rebuilding it. 44% of this program is dedicated toward those investments, track being a particular area of focus. In addition, in this program, we funded the majority of the PTC, Positive Train Control initiative. On the next slide, the board-approved 2015 to 2019 capital program totals $2.3 billion. 84% of this program is focused on state of good repair or normal replacement projects, a very small amount on system improvements. Again, the infrastructure in this program is at a level of 32%, down a little bit from the prior program as a result of PTC, which was a large investment in the prior program now being completed. Rolling stock is funded at 23%, consistent with what Jim Allen talked about with the M9 contract. and Harmon Shop as we move through Phase 5 of that program. Next slide. This slide focuses on our performance of committing our funding. This focuses on the 2015 performance. The actuals are through October. The plan is through the annual plan. As you can see on the chart, the performance chart and both at a dollar amount and number of projects, we are very close at the end of October of attaining our annual plan. For example, the 2015 commitment plan totaled $223 million, and as of October, we were at $220 million. Next slide. In 2015, there have been 3 major commitments. As you can see on the chart, the largest being the design-build project for the Superstorm Sandy, which will be restoring our power and CNS infrastructure on the Hudson Line. Those 3 items are listed there for your review. On the next slide, this takes a look at our completions, how we're doing at actually getting the projects done. This is not as good as the commitment plan. Through October, we're at about 63% of our annual plan on a dollar value basis, as well as on number of projects. We think we're going to be able to move that forward. We have one major project that is still outstanding and at risk of not being completed by the end of this year. The next slide shows the 2 major completions that we attained in 2015. The first being the completion of the M8 contract, which Dwight talked about. We received the last of the single cars, and we also completed the North White Plains parking garage, which I'll show you a detail of that about 2 slides hence. Next slide, please. This is a few weeks back. The president of the railroad with a number of local officials did a ribbon cutting at North White Plains, where we opened this garage to the public. It's a $42 million design-build contract. It was completed under budget in a timely manner. It is a 500-space garage. Gave us about 400 additional parking spaces. We have permit meter spacing, ADA parking spaces, scooter parking, bicycle racks, so it basically accommodate most people that want to access the station. We incorporated sustainability elements into it, LED lighting, etc. And we worked with the localities in making improvements around the garage itself, crosswalks, traffic signals, and lighting. This is because with additional cars coming to the site, there was concerns about making sure that the pedestrians that were actually going to the station, not necessarily parking in the garage, had to continue to have a safe access to the station. The garage is about 50% occupied, and we expect that to continue to grow. This is a very critical regional station for the railroad, so it should move itself towards full occupancy. The next slide the next 2 slides begin us into a small business mentoring program. The small business mentoring program Tier 1, which is for projects about $1 million or less. We have a contract value of $6.5 million in 14 projects. These pictures show a couple of the items that are projects that are ongoing. At Hartsdale Station, we're painting the exterior of the building, replacing the windows and doors, and that is an ongoing project. At Mamaroneck Station, where we were doing larger state of good repair improvements to the platform and ramps and stairs, we've added a bicycle shelter. If you're familiar with the Mamaroneck Station, there are probably over 50 bikes that are parked all over the place, and we're trying to get this into a central location so it doesn't impede our pedestrians trying to get to the platform. And at Terrytown, we're making improvements to a lot on the south side of the station on the outbound side. Small business mentoring Tier 2, which is $1 to $3 million in size. We have one project, which is pictured here, contract value of $2.5 million, 2.4, which is rebuilding or renovating the north overpass at Croton Harmon, which is the main area where the ticket office is and where there are restrooms. Old and tired building, needed a lot of work, and it's basically gotten a lot of, I'll say, TLC, much better ambiance, air conditioning and heating that'll be improved. The final piece is the 2015 to 2019 proposal. In all categories, including the federal program, which is an up to $3 million program, we have a commitment to, we've identified $39 million towards that program that will be executed in our either downstairs in Grand Central or at stations outlying parking, structures, power, and shops and yards. Next slide, please. We're going to go into some of our major projects, the first one being the Superstorm Sandy restoration. This slide shows the location of our two major projects. First one being along the Hudson Line, we're doing communications and signal and power infrastructure improvements. And the second one is in the white boxes, we're replacing 3 substations and replacing some AC facility houses at our Harlem River Lift Bridge. Next slide, please. The first one I'm going to talk about in a little bit detail is the 30-mile power and CNS infrastructure restoration. This two-phase project is about $300 million. We'll replace the communications and signal box and the traction power cables and components. You can see in the picture where we're going to be using as much as possible. We're going to be using a cable trough installation where the power cables and the CNS cables will go into. There will be some places where we will be limited. Our standard is the trough has to be 3 inches below the bottom of tie and 30 inches away from that so it doesn't interfere with our track maintenance. So where we can do that, we will. Other places we'll have to find other methods such as direct burial. The 30% design was completed in September of 2014. Because of the size of this, we did a risk assessment on that. We awarded Phase 1 in May of this year, and its scheduled completion is in June of 2017. The first phase is from Greystone to Croton Harmon. We are right now focused on Terrytown, which is a little bit north of there, around the 25-mile post to Croton Harmon right now. The Phase 2, which is an option in this contract, we expect to commence in June of 2017 and complete in July of 2019. The second item is in the Sandy area is the replacement of 3 Hudson Line substations. These substations received 4 to 5 feet of water in them. We are replacing them at Riverdale, at Terrytown, and Croton Harmon. And additionally, we're hardening 2 AC facility substations at the lift bridge. These facility houses at the lift bridge provide the power to lift and lower the bridge. All of these, the 3 substations will be elevated to an advisory-based flood elevation of +4, which basically means in most cases about 5 or 6 feet above grade. And you can see in the picture which depicts Terrytown how the final picture at the bottom, you can see that it's 4 or 5 feet above grade. The design was completed in July of 2014. The DC substations was awarded in December, and we expect completion next year, next December. And the AC facility houses were completed in August of this year. The next major project is Harmon Shop. The top of it is a picture of the campus from above. There's a variety of projects we've done. This has been a multi-phased, multi-program rebuilding of the shop. The facility is over 100 years old. Earlier phases have focused on a 20s coach and locomotive servicing yard. We've constructed a new coach shop. We've constructed a new locomotive shop. Largely, these have all been done using a design-build methodology. When we're done with Phase 5, which is the phase we're in now, right now, we will have spent about $1.2 billion in year commitment dollars. Next slide. What we're focused on right now is Phase 5. The first stage of that was funded in the 2010 to 2014 program. That's the work that's ongoing right now. In that, we will build a consist shop facility, which will be 2 10-car consist tracks, working storeroom and lockers and lunchroom. That's depicted as stage 1-1 in blue at the bottom. Also in this stage, we'll be building an EMU annex on the west side of the plant. We will be building a wheel and axle shop and various shops, a wheel, carpentry shop, etc., lockers, and lunchroom. The importance of advancing this part of the work was it allowed our mechanical forces to continue working in the present building. And then once we complete this phase, this EMU annex, that we will move that work into there so that there will be no interruption in service by our mechanical forces on the fleet. The final phase of the mechanical department's needs at Harmon is Stage 2, which will be advanced with the 2015 to 2019 capital program. That work, which will be replace the vehicle bays and do all the different truck and HVAC shops and training department, will commence in 2018. On the next slide, we see a little bit more of the details, which won't go into the gory details here, but essentially the Stage 1 work is a $316 million program. The design, preliminary design began in 2012 and was completed in 2013. The design build, Stage 1, began in 2014 and will be done in 2012-31-17, at which point, with the 2015 and 19 funding, we'll begin work on the EMU shop, the Stage 2 work. On the next slide, we see some of the progress photos for Stage 1. Largely, it's been demolition of existing buildings or shops to move them out of the way. The recycling facility, which is the top two slides, that will provide the real estate for where the EMU annex will be constructed. And on the bottom left, we demolished a below shed and some track on the north side, which will allow us to extend the consist tracks and that facility to the north. One of the things that we had to do as part of this project is, this is an ongoing shop facility, and we had to build a closure wall, which will allow us to maintain the existing building and our mechanical forces in that building. We built the closure wall, that's been completed, and then we'll be able to do demolition on the east side of that, which will allow us, that will be the location where we'll put the consist facility tracks. Some of the highlights that we've completed is we've done mobilization, we've done most of the clearing, the closure wall has been completed, and right now we're beginning to demolish the Building 6 on the east side, and we're working on final design as this is a design build project. We will begin foundation work in the first quarter of 2016, and we'll continue and begin structural steel erection in the second quarter of 2016. I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Any comments or questions? Okay, the independent engineering's report for both Hudson Line and Croton-Harmon. Mark Cosmetti.
I'll start with the Hudson Line. Since the previous report to CPOC in February, the Phase 1 contract was awarded in May as forecast. The schedule negotiated with the design builder is for 25 months for each phase. Phase 2 construction will likely start at the conclusion of Phase 1. The negotiated cost for both phases was below the engineer's estimate. A risk assessment was performed in October 2014, and the results presented in the April 2015 CPOC book. The notice to proceed date was consistent with the results of the risk assessment, which also identified a potential 2-month delay, 1 month to each phase. The potential 2-month delay to construction was mitigated by Metro-North and the design builder agreeing to add 1 month to each phase. The IEC is satisfied with the agency's continuous risk mitigation efforts. The next slide outlines some of those efforts. The top schedule and cost risks deal with the productivity of digging the trench and installing the cable trough over the 30-mile project limit. In response, Metro-North has developed mitigation strategies. For the risks associated with digging the trench, Metro-North has identified the following mitigations: the use of mechanized methods in lieu of hand digging where possible, providing the locations of known buried power and signal cables in the contract documents, and including an allowance in the contract for the taking of 1,500 test pits and borings. For the risks associated with installing the cable trough, Metro-North has encouraged flexibility in where the trough is located and how it is designed. Metro-North recently approved a design builder proposed innovative construction method to minimize the impacts associated with deeper digging. Metro-North also included over $5 million in contingency funds to cover change orders. For the Harmon Consist shop, with approximately 25% of the design build contract complete, the project is currently on schedule. All of the early contract milestones, like the closure wall John described, have been achieved. On the financial side, the project is on budget. There have been no additions to the contract thus far. The IEC agrees with the agency's reporting of schedule and budget. As Metro-North mentioned, a one-day risk update workshop was held in order to include the EMU work advanced from Stage 2 and also the contractual information from the design builder, including cost and schedule. The results shown are at the 80th percentile probability. For the schedule, a potential delay of up to 3 months, which includes additional time for building commissioning and for reviewing the design builder's submittals. And for the budget, there's a potential increase of up to $7 million due to potential change orders and extended overhead costs associated with project delay. To prevent this potential schedule delay and cost overrun, Metro North has taken a number of mitigation steps, some of which were included in Metro North's presentation you just heard. In addition to those, the Metro North project team provides input to the IEC, who prepares monthly updates to the risk logs to track risks and mitigations. Metro North approved a design builder proposed innovative construction method for installing foundations without using piles. There's a $6 million contingency fund to cover most of the potential increase. And to date, the IEC is satisfied with the agency's continuous risk mitigation efforts. That concludes my report on the Metro North Capital Program.
Thank you, Mark. Any questions of Mark? Hearing none, we'll move on to the capital program status report. Craig?
I'll refer committee members to page 88 for the completion and commitment report for October. If there are any questions, I'll be glad to respond to them.
That concludes the agenda. May I have a motion to adjourn? All in favor? Thank you.